So tonight, Donald Trump picked Neil Gorsuch to be Supreme Court nominee. So we've got some mixed feelings about that. And apparently so do some folks who worked in the Obama administration. So I don't know if this will hurt his chances, but Obama's former ethics czar, Norm Eisen, when he heard that it might be Gorsuch, was excited and said he's a great guy. And it turns out, because that's Norm Eisen, Gorsuch and Barack Obama went to Harvard Law School together.
Right.
Oh no, he's in a lot of trouble. Okay, they were in the same school doesn't mean they agree. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he's got a great background in terms of pedigree. Sure, went to Columbia undergrad, Harvard Law, and then he went to Oxford as well. He's a 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Colorado. Now let's get to his judicial opinions. Of course, most important of all. You know, Anna, you talked during the regular show about how he's got respect for precedent.
Yeah, so I actually spoke to you about that during a break. So let me give you a quick rundown of what I know about him. So first off, there's been a lot of worry regarding a Supreme Court pick by Donald Trump because conservatives have been very aggressive about overturning Roe v. Wade. But apparently, Gorsuch has been open about how he believes in court precedent. So he is not likely to be someone who would want to challenge Roe v. Wade. So that's good news, but who knows? I mean, this is all, of course, based on speculation. Phyllis Schlafly's family is actually against him because they don't believe he's conservative enough.
And the Schlaflys are extreme right wing.
Yes.
So they now, on the other hand, don't get too excited because both on religious issues and precedent issues, there's a completely different side, which is very worrisome. First of all, on religious issues, he joined the dissent in arguing against Obamacare's protections on contraception coverage.
So that was the case involving Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby, for religious reasons, did not want to provide health insurance that would cover contraception.
And he said that ran roughshod over the rights of religious nonprofit organizations. Okay, obviously we don't agree with that, but a conservative pick was more likely to have that opinion, obviously, right?
Right.
But so, look, the problem he's replacing Scalia if he gets through, which, let's keep it real, he likely will. And Scalia, he said, was a lion of the law. I thought he was a liar of the law. And Gorsuch said in his speech as Trump introduced him, look, you can't. If you're a judge that likes all the outcomes of your decisions, you're probably a bad judge because you should do it based on the law and not whether you agree with it politically or not. That's great. I love that. If he's actually earnest about that, that's a wonderful standard. Scalia would get to his political belief no matter what. He pretended to be principled, but like, oh, states' rights, his whole life, he said he was in favor of states' rights. Gore v. Bush, he's like, oh, states' rights don't matter at all. I don't care about Florida wanting to recount. They've got no rights at all. I'm going to vote against states' rights. Because why? Because I want Bush to be president, not Al Gore. So he was a liar of the law. So if he looks up to Scalia, well, that's a huge problem. So in a lot of times with these nominees, you never know. They say one thing and then they get in and they do something else.
Right.
But so you got to look at their record. Now, to me, the most problematic part of his record and why he was probably selected in the first place is he is massively pro-multinational corporations. So if you look at the history of the Supreme Court, it has gotten more and more pro-business, meaning that whichever side, for example, that the Chamber of Commerce is on is more likely to win now than they were 10 years ago, which is much more likely than 20, 30, 40 years ago. Every court, including the nominees that Democrats put in. So Democrats like Clinton and Obama will put in nominees who are great on social issues, but will then turn around and be a little wishy on business interests. They'll be like, well, you know why? One, Clinton and Obama bragged about how his justices were going to be pro-business. Now, that doesn't mean small business. People that go to the Supreme Court very often are actually giant multinational corporations. And part of the second reason why, even for the Democrats, was a lot of them worked for law firms. Those law firms were the biggest law firms in the country and represented giant multinational corporations. So they come from that perspective. Now, Gorsuch, in his case, he thinks Chevron in 1984 was decided wrongly. Now, of course, if you're not a legal expert, you don't know what Chevron was. But Chevron allowed, that case allowed federal regulators to decide the scope of the regulations. Now, if you're, for example, you're running the EPA and you say, okay, they pass the Clean Air Act or Clean Water Act, we've got to apply that because we're the executive branch. Here's how we're going to apply it. I'm going to figure out that 5 parts in a million or a billion is fine. That's not going to hurt anyone. But 10 or 15 parts in a billion is too much lead in the water or whatever it happens to be. And corporations didn't like that because it gives regulators too much power. And then I can't pollute as much, right? Gorsuch doesn't like Chevron. And in that case, he says, precedent, it's overrated, okay? And we need to rethink that Chevron decision so that we can strip regulators of any power they have. And then the courts, which are much slower, they have less expertise, they're not scientists, et cetera, right? And are a lot more pro-business. They get the power to allow the corporations, in my opinion, to run roughshod over us. So maybe he's not as extreme as the Schlaflys and the extreme right wing want. So that'll lull us into a sense of maybe complacency. We're like, oh, he looks presentable, right? And he went to good schools, and Obama and his buddies in Washington kind of like him because he's not a bad guy. He won't punch you in the face at a cocktail party. But in reality, what he's looking to do is hand over more and more power to the people actually running the country, which are multinational corporations.
Yeah.
So there you have it, for better or for worse.
I was expecting a lot worse. I got to be honest. That's not to say that I'm complacent and I'm happy with this pick. And by the way, this is breaking news, so I'm sure we're going to get more information about him and his past rulings as this story develops. But I got to be honest, I was expecting Judge Napolitano to be.
I know, it's like
pick.
just an absolute clown, right?
Yes.
Because that's the first name. That's literal. It's the first name that Trump named back in the primaries when he was running. Like, who do you want to be on the Supreme Court? And he said Judge Napolitano from Fox News, because all he does is watch cable news. So, but Gorsuch is not a Trump pick, other than the fact that he's attractive and Trump likes people who are attractive and from central casting. He's a business pick, okay? He's a donor pick. You know why? Because the right wing will attack him a little bit, thereby making him look moderate. And then when he gets in, they say that one of the things that he might be able to do is convince Anthony Kennedy, who is sometimes a swing vote, almost always conservative these days, especially since Sandra Day O'Connor left the bench. But he can bring Kennedy over to vote more with businesses. Mission accomplished. While you were distracted and while he has some seemingly moderate parts, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is for business to keep on winning, and that's what it looks like is going to happen. And by the way, one more on religion. He also wrote strongly against assisted suicide laws.
Right.
So now, I thought we were a country that believed in freedom and liberty, but if you're a religious person, hey, I want to get to the result that my religion dictates, which is that you should not have the freedom to decide what to do with your life. Well, I'm going to find a way to get there. So I think freedom dictates that you shouldn't have freedom because my God told me. So there's a little bit of that thrown in as well. Okay, we'll find out a lot more as we go forward, but that's your pick, Judge Neil Gorsuch, 49 years old. If he gets on the court, he could be on there for 40 or 50 years.
Yep.
So another result of the Trump election is those ideas will be with us for a long, long time, well after Trump has left. Are you sick of the mainstream media? Then I got good news for you. We're going to hire some investigative reporters and we're going to go house. We're actually going to investigate what's happening in this country and stand up for you guys. Help us do it. Go to tytnetwork.com/go. If everybody watching this video just gives a little bit of money, we'd have plenty to hire those investigative teams and unleash them on the country.